Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokashankaram. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badharayanam Sutrabhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. Hari Om. So, in the last class, we had seen the answer to the sixth question, 6 of the 7 questions that was raised. And that question was, Katam Vimoksha. What is the means of liberation? How to free oneself from bondage? That was the question. And we saw the answer. How the nature of bondage, if you understand, that is ignorance. And then the ignorance caused errors. That is what causes bondage. Once we know that ignorance is the root of the problem. So we have diagnosed the problem. So the solution will be what? Get rid of that ignorance. Jnanat eva vimoksha. Only through knowledge, liberation is gained. So this was very clearly said. Nastraena shastrairanileena vannina chetum na shakyo na cha karma kotibhihi viveka vijnana mahasina vina dato prasadena shritena manjuna. It's not possible to destroy this bondage by using missiles. When you shoot some missiles, that itself is coming out of ignorance only. So by missiles or any other weapons, you cannot get rid of this bondage. By wind, by fire, or by millions of karmas and upasanas, that ignorance does not go away, therefore the bondage will not go away. Bondage can be removed only by gaining the discriminative knowledge. Knowledge which is beautiful, which is clear, and which is a gift of the Lord coming to you through His blessings and grace. That way, the entire gamut of spiritual sadhana was given. Shruti pramanaika matehe swadharma nishthatavayatma vishuddha dhirasya vishuddha buddhehe paramatma vedanam tenaiva samsara samoola nashaha. So if you want to get rid of samoola nasha of samsara, totally uproot that, first you must have shraddha. You must have a conviction in the validity of scriptures. You must have that faith. And then you should do your dharma, swadharma anushtanam, karma yoga, to gain purity of mind. And with a pure mind, take to Vedantic study under the guidance of a guru who will teach you the Shastra. Gain that knowledge, and that knowledge will destroy the bondage along with its root. So this was the solution given to that problem of bondage, how to get rid of bondage. So we saw that last week. And now Shankaracharya takes up the seventh and final question. What is that question? Tayoho vivekaha katam etat uchyatam. Tayoho, between the two. Vivekaha, discrimination. How to do the discrimination between the two? What two? Atma and Anatma. We've already talked about what is Atma, what is Anatma. Now the question is how to differentiate between the two, how to analyze them, separate them. What is the process with which you can do this Atma Anatma Viveka, the discrimination between the self and the not self? So this question is answered rather elaborately from this shloka, verse 149. The discussion goes all the way up to verse 211. So these set of verses from 149 to 211 is the Atma Anatma Vivekaha, discrimination between the self and the not self. A very important topic. That's why Bhashyakara devotes so many verses for this purpose. Now this Atma Anatma Viveka, this analysis, this vichara into the self and the not self is done by using this analysis is done by using a particular, very specific technique, particular method. The Atma happens to be extremely subtle. It's an extremely subtle entity. By that, I mean, it's not easily comprehended. It's not easily comprehensible because it's not available for any sense. You cannot see it with your eyes, hear about it, touch it, taste it, nothing. Atindriya Vishaya, this Atma is. Okay, certain things we don't see and all that, but you can use some logic and all that. It's Atma, very difficult for even reasoning it out. So sensory perception do not help. Logic does not help. Experimentation. We are all trained in the sciences, and in science, we do a lot of experiments to discover the truth, the laws of nature. Atma is not available for such experimentation. Meditation. Meditation is so popular these days. Can I meditate and grab that Atma? Mm-mm. In meditation, you may have so many experiences. And Shastra very clearly says, whatever you experience, that is not the Atma. If you experience something, that is anatma. So we are not talking about any experience objects, be it gross or subtle. Atma is aprameya, achintyam. We've seen these words before, aprameya, achintya, etc. Therefore, it is atisukshma, extremely subtle. Therefore, incomprehensible. If I have to grasp a subtle Atma, an Atma that is so subtle, I have to make the grasping intellect also extremely subtle. A tool that is used for a subtle operation must be a subtle tool. If you want to do an eye surgery, you cannot use an axe. You can use an axe to cut a tree, but not for eye surgery. A microsurgery requires micro tools. Therefore, the quality of the tool that you use depends on the quality of the operation. Similarly, Atma Jnanam requires an intellect that is extremely subtle. What do we do for that? How do you gain such subtlety of the intellect? Initially, we take anatma itself. Because anatma is what is available to you. You take that. Before getting to atma, as a stepping stone, as a training ground, you take anatma itself and divide that anatma, even the anatma, the not self, these objects, etc. Some are gross, some are subtle. So we try to understand the grosser part of anatma and then go to the subtle parts of the anatma. And as you start doing it, the mind becomes subtler and subtler. The intellect becomes subtler and subtler. The mind and intellect learns to dwell upon the subtler part of anatma. the artificial intelligence craze that is going on now, they call it, one term that you will come across is LLM. What is LLM? Large language learning model, something like that. It is learning as it goes through. Language learning model or something like that called LLM. So as you start interacting with it, it learns about you. It's interesting. So like that, you use that mind to analyze the anatma, the grosser to the subtle. And in that process, your mind and intellect become subtle. It's just like taking a blunt knife. How do you sharpen it? That stone, the grinding stone, that is very rough. You use that, and as you use that, the knife that you are sharpening becomes sharper and sharper. So there's nothing wrong in starting with the analysis of the gross anatma. So once the mind has become subtle, then you can get into the analysis of the atma. So the first stage is to look at the anatma and grade that anatma in terms of subtlety. So you first dwell upon the gross anatma, then go to the subtle anatma, and then go into the subtler anatma, and thereafter we can see something even subtler than that. So the first stage of Vedantic sequence, Vedanta analysis sequence, is the classification of anatma in terms of grossness or subtlety. And this classification is done in two different ways. It's very similar, different Upanishads do it a little bit differently. One type of classification is in terms of, or it is called Sharira Traya Vibhagaha. Vibhagaha, division, classification. Sharira Traya, in terms of three bodies. We've seen this. You all are familiar with this. We've covered this already. Another type of classification is Kosha Panchaka Vibhagaha. Again, division, classification in terms of Panchaka, 5 kosha sheets. As I said, we have already done Shariratraya Vibhaga. In terms of Stula Shariram, gross body, Sukshma Shariram, subtle body, and Karana Shariram, the causal body. We've already done in Vivekacu. So first, dwell upon Stula Shariram, the physical I, for some time. I am the body, keep this notion for some years. Dress well, adorn yourself with nice ornaments, sport a nice hairstyle. Nothing wrong. Be a physical personality. Then slowly grow out of it. Grow to emotional or intellectual personality. You see that in the world. You see scientists. They do not bother about their hairstyle. Einstein's hairstyle is famous, or lack thereof. Right? He didn't bother about how he looked. Uh, because they are not the physical eye. They are not identified with that. Hmm? They are identified with the intellectual eye. Such a person has a subtler intellect than a normal person. No more bothered about their gross physical personality. He is into what he knows, an intellectual personality. One must have a still subtler mind to understand Karana Sharira. So now, Shankaracharya is going to do, we've already done the Shariratraya Vichara. Now he is going to do Panchakosha Vibhaga, Panchakosha Vichara. And this starts in verse 149. Now, this verse, we have to read it as prose. This is what we call Vishama Chandas. It is not Anushtup Chandas, Trishtup, or whatever the normal ones that we are used to. Doesn't have. You just read it as prose. Koshair Annamayadaihi Panchabihi. Koshair Annamayadaihi Panchabihi. Atmana Samruto Bhati. Atmana Samruto Bhati. Nija Shakti Samutpannaihi. Nija Shakti Samutpannaihi. Shaivala Patalaihi. Shaivala Patalaihi. Ivambuvapestam. Ivambuvapestam. Koshair Annamayadhyai hi panchabihi Atmana Samruto Bhati Nija Shakti Samutpannaihi Shaivala Patalaihi Ivambuvapestam. So I don't know, probably Bhashikara wanted to keep the student awake. Because if the same meter is going on, the chanting is like a lullaby, puts you to sleep. So he's mixing it up a little bit. That is why this Vishama Chandas. The Sharira Trayam has Sukshma Taratamyam. Taratamyam means gradation. Taratamyam. Good, better, best. Like that. 3 degrees of comparison. Taratamyam. Gradation in terms of subtlety. If you take the 3 bodies, the physical body, the gross body is gross. Subtle body is subtle. And the causal body is extremely subtle. These are all at the Anatma level only. Now, this Panchakosha that we are going to talk about are nothing but Anatma. They are the 3 Sharirams themselves, further divided into 5 koshas. The 3 Sharira are being reclassified into 5 koshas. The first one is Annamaya Kosha. The Stula Shariram is called Annamaya Kosha. That is one. That is 1-to-1. When it comes to Sukshma Shariram, that is where the finer classification is done. It is subdivided into Pranamaya, Manomaya, and Vijnanamaya Kosha. Those of you who have been studying the various texts, you're all very familiar with these. Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya. We did this analysis in Side 3 also. We did this, done in many, many times, many texts. Now, all these 3 koshas put together is Sukshma Shariram. The Karana Shariram is renamed as Anandamaya Kosha. So Sthula Shariram and Annamaya Kosha are synonymous. Karana Shariram and Anandamaya Kosha are synonymous. And Sukshma Shariram alone is subdivided into Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya. So in total, we have 5 sheets, Pancha Kosha. And the subdivision into Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya is based on Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. You may be familiar with these terms: Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. Icha, desire, power to want something, to desire something. Jnana, to know something. And Kriya, to act. Now, the Kriya Shakti is the power of Pranamaya. Pranamaya, that's the vital air sheath. So, it is instrumental in Kriya, in action. Pranamaya. The Icha Shakti is the power of Manomaya. Mind. Mind is the one which desires. Jnana Shakti, of course, is the power of the intellect. Intellect knows, has the ability to know things. That's its power. So they are graded in this way. Because Jnanam determines desire, desire determines action. So what you know will determine what you want, what type of desire. You cannot desire for something that you don't know. So the starting point is knowledge. And once the desire comes, desire influences action. You want something, you got to do something about it. So in this way, knowledge must be subtler, desire a little bit less subtle, and of course, action is the least subtle. Therefore, Pranamaya, then subtler than that is the Manomaya, and subtler than that is Vijnanamaya. And in Taittiriya Upanishad, each subsequent one is the Antaratma, we said. Inside, interior, like that we talked about. Thus, we have the 3 sharirams subdivided into Panchakoshas. Then we have to do Panchakosha Atma Viveka. The Panchakosha together, meaning Anatma, we are going to differentiate it from the Atma. So, differentiate Atma from the Anatma Panchakosha. Therefore, he says, Atma Annamayadaihi Panchabihi Koshaihi Samvrutah. Samvrutah. The Atma is covered. Samvrutah, covered very well by these 5 koshas, beginning with Annamaya Kosha. It is as though they encase the Atma. Koshavat Achadakatvat Koshah. Because they serve as though an enclosure of the Atma. So they get the name Kosha. What does a sheath do? Suppose there is a sword, it's kept inside a sheath. Because the knife is sharp, so when you carry it around, you might get hurt. There are some shooters who shoot themselves in the foot. It happens. So you don't want that to happen. So you have to be very careful. So in the case of a sword, you put it and cover it in the sheath to prevent accidental cuts to the person holding the sword. The sheath covers the sword, and the sword is not, you don't see it. You just see the outside. Similarly, the Panchakoshas are called sheets because they cover the Atma as it were. Therefore, he says, Panchabihi koshaihi Atma samvritah. Atma is well covered by the 5 sheets. What are these koshas? Annamayadehi. Annamaya Adi, beginning with Annamaya kosha. And therefore, the rest are Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya. The Atma is covered by Panchakoshas, the 5 sheets. Therefore, Nabhati, because of the covering, we are not able to recognize the Atma. So if covering is an obstacle for knowledge, we have to remove the cover, which is called discovering. The koshas are born out of Nija Shakti Samutpannaihi, the very Shakti of Atma. The Nija here means Atma. Koshas are born out of Atma, and their existence is not their own independent existence. They gain their existence from Atma, and then they cover the very Atma itself. We have seen the example of a cloud, how it comes about from the heat of the sun, and then the cloud goes and covers the sun like that. We've seen that examples. Just a few weeks back, we saw that example. That Shakti of Atma is called Ajnana Shakti, Avaran Shakti, the veiling power, and Vikshepa, projecting power. Otherwise called Maya Shakti or Avidya. We have looked at these terms, we have analyzed these terms, so you all are familiar with that. That is called Shakti. So we've seen that when we were discussing Karana Shariram. We said Karana Shariram has different names. We called it Avidya, we called it Maya. Therefore, Nija Shakti means Ajnana Rupa Atma Shakti. Maya Rupa Atma Shakti. Power in terms of Maya or Vidya. From that Shakti are born these koshas, and having born out of Atma, they should be grateful to Atma, should it not? Instead of being grateful to Atma, they just cover it, overshadow it, cover that Atma itself. So previously he gave the example. I just said, Bhanu Prabhasam Janita Prapantihi Bhanum Tirodhaya Vijrumbate Yata Atmodita Mam Kritihi Atmatattvam Tata Tirodhaya Vijrumbate Swayam. The clouds are born because of the sun. Sun heats up the oceanic waters, and the water vapor eventually becomes a dark rain-bearing clouds, and the clouds cover the very sun itself. The clouds that are born from the very grace of the sun has the audacity to cover the sun. Here also, the Panchakoshas are born from the Atma, and then they cover the Atma. Now, he gives another example. On a pond or a lake, there is the moss. The moss is born out of water. The born of water. That moss covers the very water itself. From a distance, it appears as if there is no water. If the moss is thick and if it covers the entire pond, it would look just like a grassy field. You may not even know that there is water below that mass. It may look like a nice manicured lawn. It feels good to walk barefoot on a well-kept lawn. Looks just like that. And you step on it, and that's it. You just slide. That moss is generally very slippery. You will fall flat on your back, get drowned. Gotta be very careful. The green moss has risen from that water only. Now, the Viveki, an intelligent person, knows the very fact that mass is there, means water is there beneath it. So many points are pointed out. In the same way, the Atma is covered by a sheath of Anatma. The Panchakoshas, which are born out of the Atma itself, cover that Atma. Continuing. Tachaivalapane samyak. Tachaivalapane samyak. Salilam pratiyate shuddham. Salilam pratiyate shuddham. Trishna santapaharam sadyah. Trishna santapaharam sadyah. Saukyapradam param pumsah. Saukyapradam param pumsah. Tachaivalapaniye samyak. Salilam pratiyate shuddham. Trishna santapaharam sadyuh. Saukyapradam param pumsah. If we have to discover the water in a pond that is covered by moss, we have to remove the Shaivala Patala, the sheath of moss. So he says, Tat Shaivala Apanaye Samyak. If one removes the sheath of moss completely, Samyak Shuddham Shalilam Pratiyate. He sees the good, clear water very well. The beauty is that Shaivala cannot pollute the water. That moss does not pollute. It just remains on the top and covers. Once that is removed, the pond has good, natural, healthy water. Therefore, Shankaracharya adds, Shuddham Salilam Pratiyate, the pure water is seen. When he writes the word Salilam, he is keeping in mind that when we study the example, we should not forget the point that we are trying to make, what point we are trying to make in the exemplify. If you forget the original, two problems will come. You will not extend the example properly. Second worst mistake is what you should not. So the original should be remembered always. So this Salilam refers to the Atma. Here also uses the word Shuddha. In the case of Atma, also it is Shuddha Atma. That he will talk about in the next shloka. Just bear in mind. Not only that, Trishna Santapa Haram. That Shuddha Jalam, that pure water, is capable of removing the pain caused by thirst. Trishna. Somebody is very thirsty. Santapa, a dry throat. So much of pain, discomfort, santapa is there. Uneasiness is there because of the thirst. Those days, people used to walk and they had to depend upon natural sources of water. So this person has been walking, has been looking for some water. It's not seen at all. Even though the water is close by, But because of the mask, he did not see it. And when he came nearby, because of previous experience, he knew that there is water underneath that thin sheath of mask. So he removes it and drinks the water, and the thirst which has been afflicting him is removed. Thirst is quenched. He's happy. So then he takes that water, sprinkles it on his head, his face, cools himself a little bit, and is refreshed. Immediately he gets some relief from the heat. Therefore, that water is Trishna Santapa Haram. That remover of the pain of thirst is there. The Trishna is very important adjective, which has to be extended to the ignorant person. One meaning of Trishna is the thirst for water, and the worldly person has thirst for sense objects. You have so many desires, so many craving. I want this, I want that. However much you get, I still want to get more and more. I am scorched by this Trishna greed. There is santapaha, the desire burns him up. Bhagavan Sri Krishna compares these desires. Dushpurena analena cha. He compares it to fire in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So the desire is compared to fire. The ordinary fire burns you if you touch it. This fire burns in the mind and causes emotional pain. Now with the discovery of Atma, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan bhattamano atmani eva atmana tushtaha sita prajnyaha tadochyate. The wise man discovering that Atma is established in the self gives up all cravings. Therefore, Shuddham Trishna Santapa Haram Salilam. So very, very thoughtfully used expression. Beautiful poetry and skill here. After drinking water, how much time does it take you to get the trupti? Suppose you are thirsty and you have taken water at 2 p.m. Thereafter, when will the trupti come to you? At 5 or 6? No. As you drink, you get trupti. Thirst is quenched. You feel happy, fulfilled. No time gap at all between drinking the water and enjoying the fulfillment. Similarly, jnana prapti and paripurna trupti. No time gap. Nice. We are studying Panchadashi. Trupti Deepa Prakarana. That trupti is what is hinted here. We are seeing that very elaborately in Panchadashi. Trupti. Once the Trishna is gone, once the thirst is gone, the inner condition is Saukya Pradam. These are all adjectives to the water. Water is pure, water is the remover of thirst. Immediately, water is the giver of that Saukyam, that comfort. How are you if someone asks? You can say Saukyam from your innermost heart. So the Saukyam coming from drinking water when you are thirsty is a relative Saukyam, but the Saukyam coming from Jnanam, that is the highest. Param Saukya Pradam, it gives supreme, great trupti. Paripurna trupti, complete contentment. That is why we say Annadanam and Jaladanam are superior. You can give anything. If you give money, any amount you give, the person may not say it is sufficient. They may say, okay. the way they say, okay, that itself shows that still unsatisfied only. Satisfaction is not there. But in Annadanam, even the greatest glutton eventually will say enough. Oh, enough. I'm full. Don't serve me any more food. So in Annadanam, there is paripurna trupti, complete satisfaction, total contentment. That's why they say, na anna udaka samam danam. There is no danam equal to annadanam and udaka danam, giving food and water. Because in both of them, we can get paripurna trupti, total contentment. Therefore, he says, param saukya pradam, total trupti. Who gets such a contentment? Pumsaha, this thirsty man, the weary traveler. In the same way, the samsara dukkham is roasting a person. That tapa is there, samsara tapa is there. There is an intense longing, yearning for relief. When will this end? This samsara, this transmigration, repeated births, and in all the suffering and all that, when will it end? That kind of desperation is there. And even when the student approached, how the description you all remember earlier? Like that. Then through Panchakosha Viveka, the ignorance is removed, the self is realized, then there is immediate relief. So we have to extend this example to samsara and the removal of samsara by the gain of knowledge, the Atman. Samsari is also thirsty because of eternal travel. He has been traveling through numerous births. Just like this traveler who's been walking in the sun in the summer, so thirsty. In the same way, we have been going through countless births. So there is a thirst for the removal of this bondage. With the self-knowledge, the thirst is removed, and there is total contentment resting in the self. More of it we will see in the next class and classes to come. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.